Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to a man who is not only at the top of his game with his physique, but also in regards to helping other coaches build their business. It is the one and only Ollie Carson. How we doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for that lovely, lovely introduction. I don't know how much of it is true, but I'll take it.
Not a problem, mate. This is an episode that I've wanted to do for a wee while, but I knew you were a busy man, but I finally bit the bullet and thought, you know what, I'm going to pester him and sent you that email there a couple of weeks ago. So by the time this goes live, this will be in a couple of weeks. And by that point, the gyms up here in Scotland might be closer to opening. But it's been nice and sort of dandy for you guys down south. But before we sort of get into these episodes, for the listeners out there that perhaps have been living under a rock and don't know much about you, I would like you to give them a full rundown of who you are, your business, your history within sort of bodybuilding and industry to date, so they can get a really clear understanding of who you're all about.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess my history goes back as far as probably about, it's got to be 12 years ago or so now. It's when I kind of got into the industry. I was actually serving in the military at the time. And I had a bit of a side role as a physical training instructor in the army. So that's kind of where I got into health and fitness. I just become increasingly more passionate about, performance and at the time it was largely fitness based goals. It was like getting faster, going for longer, that kind of thing. And then I stumbled across bodybuilding. I've never been a bodybuilder. I am not cut out to be a bodybuilder. I'm like tall, lanky being. You're mega tall as well, but you just pack on size. So I'll let you have that title, dude. But I still fell in love with the process of putting on muscle, prepping for shows. I love the whole digging deep for months on end on prep and going through that side of things. So I kind of found bodybuilding whilst I was serving in the military as well. So I did a couple of shows whilst I was serving, and then got an awesome opportunity to work alongside someone that many people will know in the industry, Jamie Alderton. He opened his first gym, or his only gym to date, in Chichester on the south coast. I saw the job opportunity arise, and I was going through a bit of a rough patch in my personal life at that time. Actually, I was going through a divorce, and it was just like the perfect time for me to kind of step away from my military career, which I'd been doing for 8.5, 9 years at that time, and apply for the job. I got the job. I moved my whole life down south to Chichester to work alongside Jay as a personal trainer. Built my personal training business from there. Ended up going on my own, opening up my own facility, like a personal training facility, again in Chichester. Did that for a couple of years, all the while working on my online coaching business, as many people do these days. You start with personal training and you gradually increase your online presence, if you like. And then that got to a point where it was enough to sustain me. And then, much like most guys and girls who PT, who want the more flexible and freedom approach of online coaching, decided to take the leap to full online. And then, I was doing that for close to probably 2 years solely online. Obviously, I'd been doing it all that time previously. And I was getting more and more questions and inquiries and emails and DMs about how it is that I deliver my online coaching. I give lots of insights on my stories as to the way that I deliver programming, what the client receives, the client journey, all that kind of stuff. And it looks cool and it spikes interest. And so I was getting messages from coaches all the time. And it was like, you know what? I would love to be able to help personal trainers who just don't have a clue of how to set up a successful online coaching business. Just help those guys and girls to actually do it for themselves. Sure. So that's where Supercharged Fit Pro was formed just a couple of months back officially. And it's just skyrocketed. It's gone really, really well. We're now investing a lot back into getting some of the best coaches in the world in to educate the other coaches. So it's just this growing thing. It's kind of happened overnight, for want of a better phrase. But I absolutely love it. It's so rewarding. We as coaches, we thoroughly enjoy working with our clients, obviously, because seeing them achieve their goals, etc., is really rewarding and fulfilling. But working with a small business owner and, getting messages like, I can afford my mortgage down payment, which is like a regular occurrence at the minute for me, is like, it's mind blowing. So absolutely loving it. That's kind of like a boring introduction to me.
Yeah, I think that it's more that it's not a boring introduction. I think that you're a very humble guy, and that the success that you've had within every single business venture you've went all in, and it's came out and gave you more probably than you can imagine. But when I look at the sort of, you said the super fit charge and coaches, that what you're helping them do, it's just absolutely awesome and inspiring to see. And if there's any other coaches out there that are thinking about getting into PT, please go follow Ollie, because when I was younger, I made all those mistakes. I didn't know what a brand was, or what's a target audience, what's that, right? This is something that we are going to kind of go into today. But I certainly think that it's, although you've described it as an overnight success, it comes from, what strikes me is your hard work over just years. And whether that was what you learned from the military or just who that is as a person, I think it really shines through in everything that you do, but especially your content on Insta, because it's way different than what you see from anyone else. But I think, the success as well of you helping other coaches, it's came around in such unprecedented times that it really does show how much you do know your stuff. And with sort of the gym's been closed for so long, and this is going to be my first sort of question for you, it probably identified for a lot of fitness professionals like problems within their current business model. So, could you kind of tell us, having worked with some of those coaches, what do you think any problems we as coaches in the industry saw, and maybe perhaps what did people learn from that?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is, and one of the biggest conversations that I'm having with all the coaches that I start working with I have started working with over the last few weeks and months, is they all say the same thing. Like, they get on the phone with me and they say, I had a PT model, COVID hit, and I had nothing prepared, and I feel awful. I've lost all my income, all this kind of stuff. And, you can almost feel like this feeling of regret and resentment for not having something in place. But you got to keep in mind, anyone who's listening to this, who's maybe in a similar position, like, these are unprecedented times, and this is something that no one was prepared for and knew was going to happen. So you need to remove that feeling of, just being down on yourself and being hard on yourself and not being prepared for something that nobody had a clue that this was going to happen. Right. So I think that's the first point to make. Like, no one was ready for this. So you kind of have to move past that as a feeling of regret. And then the second point is, the question, to answer your question, I think the biggest eye opener for people is that although they were running their own small business as personal trainers or whatever, they now have this feeling that they aren't in control when previously they did. Usually if you're working for a boss or you're working for a company, there's always that kind of niggling feeling of, this could be taken from underneath me at any point. But when you're running your own business on your own terms, you feel like a level of empowerment. And COVID kind of even took that away from small business owners. You're in control. All of a sudden, you're not in control. The government's closed the gyms. Deal with it. So that's been the biggest eye opener for people. And then the natural want and desire off the back of that is to have a level of income coming in from an online capacity, because, it was clear to see in the industry that anybody who had an online service already up and running seemed to be okay throughout lockdown. Yes, we would have lost clients and there would have been some drop off, but, better than being only a personal trainer and not having any business. So that's been the biggest point, definitely, is that people want a second income stream through online. And I think it's, COVID has just forced a lot of people's hands. A lot of people had always considered doing online or wanted to do online or been intrigued by it. And COVID has just forced their hands and forced them to take a leap now.
So, you're 100% right. And in that instance where a coach just came to you and they've just went, they went, right, Ollie, they've panicked, they've went, I've lost that sense of control, I've not known what to do. What was your advice to those guys straight away to start, to start an online business? Where did you say to start? Because if they perhaps look up to some of the most successful brands out there within which they shouldn't do, right? But they will, because we all do, and I've done it before as well. They can go, oh my God, I have a website. Oh my God, I don't do articles. Oh my God, I don't do videos or YouTube channels. So where did you say, right, this is where we start and this is where we're going? Some sort of like bulletproof 3 sort of strategies that they could do. What would you suggest?
Well, the fortunate news for most personal trainers, or at least a lot of personal trainers who had been, going for some time prior to COVID, is that you've got the number one thing that you not need, but will help you start an online business, which is social proof. You know, if you can show to your audience, if you can show to social media or whatever that you can get a result with a client, then that is your biggest marketing tool, results. You know, that's what people are investing in at the end of the day. People get really bogged down with the modality in which they give coachings, like what spreadsheets do you use? What app do you use? Is it face-to-face? Is it online? The reality is when a customer or a client comes to you, they're buying the outcome, they're buying the result, you know, better sex life, better body image, better health, lower risk of mortality, all those kind of things that people value very highly. They're not investing in a spreadsheet and a check-in. They're investing in you taking them from point A to point B. So the big mindset shift that I have to make with a lot of the coaches who come on board and they're starting their online coaching business from scratch is, you know that you can take someone from point A to point B. Don't get bogged down with not having everything in place right now, you know, like, and that's where Supercharge comes in, is because it essentially just fast tracks somebody who doesn't know where to start. It's quite overwhelming. How do I deliver programming? How do I check in? How do I set up an onboarding system? All of those different technicalities of online coaching, which can be quite complex if you want to do it well, it gets overwhelming. It's like paralysis by analysis, isn't it? You know, there's so much to do that you end up doing nothing. But then the fundamental thing that I had to get through to people is you can get a result with people, and the modality in which you get there doesn't really matter.
Mate, I'm so glad you said that in regards to just starting up, because I think that that's something that it doesn't ever go away. Not for even someone that I've been in the industry for so long, thinking, right, you know, what's my formatting like on that Excel spreadsheet? Is that does that look the fresh? Does that look the part? And then literally, just as you said, it took me a few days to be like, what the fuck does it matter? You can still people fucking shred it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you've kind of said that simple is the way forward, because I work with some coaches, most that have been around for a wee while, but I'll be honest with you, I never really take anyone on board who starts up a personal training business. I'll often say, listen, you can ask me and I'll give you advice, but go to someone like yourself, a business mentor. So I hope that the coaches out there listening, or the aspiring coaches, have just felt a kind of a weight lifted off their shoulders, because, you know, if there is an established coach out there, let's face it, their checking sheets, they look the part. Their business, it looks the part. Just like, you know, when you go on your Instagram, it looks the business. You know, it's here, there, and everywhere. But I guess it reduces that sense of overwhelm if they know they can take them from point A to point B. And again, I suppose that takes us on to, if we're thinking about simplistic terms, you know, and someone that, you know, lockdown maybe has inspired some people to start up a coaching business. You know, from your experience, you work with others, everything you've been doing through the Supercharge Superfit program, you know, what would be the three key areas do you think they should focus on? I know that there's so many areas, but if there was just someone out there who's got pen and paper, they're taking notes, and they just think, right, 3 things from this podcast to take away to start their own sort of coaching business, what would you suggest?
Well, in an ideal scenario, and it rarely ever is like an ideal scenario, you know, you have people coming to you in all sorts of predicaments and scenarios where they're already doing things, they're doing things really badly, and you're kind of changing things. But in an ideal scenario, if you're looking to start, then the number one fundamental thing that you need to have in place is, as we were just discussing, the ability to get results. You know, that's your biggest marketing tool, is taking a client from point A to point B. So that will be, you know, subject to a few things: your experience, your knowledge, how much you invest back into further educating yourself, working with people. So it is a bit of a long game. You know, you're not going to be an expert coach overnight. You do need to have some skin in the game in terms of time. However, having said that, everybody has to start somewhere, right? So don't let that put you off. But what I'm saying is that's going to be your biggest tool, is the ability to get a result. The second thing that I think coaches overlook massively, and you touched on it, is knowing your target audience, or your avatar, you know, knowing who it is that A, you ultimately want to work with, B, how you help them, and how you market to them. I think there's a lot of business buzzwords that coaches are afraid to talk about or think about or consider, because it just seems a bit sleazy or money orientated. At the end of the day, you're a small business owner. And so the principles of running a business apply to you, whether you like it or not. And that includes generating leads, which is going to be down to your marketing, making sales, you even say the word sales to a personal trainer or an online coach and they quiver, it's like a dirty word. But, if you're not generating leads, if people aren't inquiring with you and you're not making sales, then you have no clients. So whether or not you like the words, it doesn't really matter. It matters for your business. And even if you're not money orientated and you just want to have more impact on people and help more people, then you need to give a fuck about those things. They are important. So knowing your target audience is massive for that, because what I see far too often is people not really clear on who it is that they want to work with and who they work with. And their marketing is quite vague. It's like they have this idea and notion that if you cast your net wider and you ultimately work with more people, more different types of people, then you have a bigger catchment area and you can potentially work with more people and make more money. But the reality is that makes you a generalist, not a specialist. Yeah. And also your content doesn't resonate with one particular person time and time again. If you put a post out and it's aimed towards Sally, who's a 40-year-old overweight female who wants to get rid of her bingo wings, and you resonate with her and she's like, holy shit, this guy knows me, he's talking to me. And then the next post you put out is talking to some 25-year-old Jack dude who wants to get absolutely shredded for a show. You're going to start confusing your audience. So being really clear on who your avatar is really important as well. And then I think the final thing, and the third and final thing, which is quite often overlooked, is retention. Like client retention is one of your biggest tools to have a thriving and flourishing business. Like your best customer is your current customer, right? So rather than churning through people by not providing the kind of service that you should be, really double down and focus on over delivering and having something in place that keeps clients on board for as long as you can. And I think those three things will kind of set you up for success.
Yeah, I'm sitting there nodding along because point number 2, I made that mistake, and I think many people have. I mean, I think where it stemmed from me was, whether you know it or not, success leaves clues. So you were looking at what the successful fitness trainers were doing, thinking, right, my content needs to be like theirs. But then what I realized at the time was, I don't work with people like that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But at the time, I was putting up, as you said, talking to Sally or whatever, 42, and then the next post was me on the hack squat giving it the fucking beans. Steroids at that. Sally's like, what? What's this hack squat?
And that's the thing, is like, if you don't have a clear grasp on who it is that you're ultimately marketing to and who you want to work with, then how the hell are they going to know? And you got to consider it, because the type of language that you use, the pain points and the problems that you tap into in your content, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with your social media content is provide value, tap into pain and problems that people face, provide a simple solution, and call people to action. And going through that simple framework with your social media content will more often than not have people inquiring with you. But like you said, if you're marketing towards that Sally, and then you've got fucking 8 plates per side on a hack squat and you're like screaming your lungs out on a hack squat, it just doesn't marry up. It doesn't make sense, so you do need to have a really clear idea with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I didn't realize I was doing it until someone like yourself told me what a target audience was.
Yeah.
I think that the whole, what you said about patience, I'm like, I preach that, because I had a call with a business coach a few years ago, and he just went, you need more time producing results, go away and do it. And then I was like, right, okay. I went and sort of knuckled down. But do you think that you see too many fitness professionals trying to just, generate a really successful business within the space of 6 months, and they just can't do it?
Yeah, definitely, man. It's not necessarily you see them trying to do it, at least with the people that I've worked with in that area. What you tend to get is, coaches will come to me and they say, like, I'm not getting as many leads as I would like right now. Should I be running Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, you're doing things arse about tit, like, I'm not even going to go into things like Facebook ads, but no, I'm not. I was considering going into it, but I'm not. It's just like a massive rabbit hole. But what I'm trying to say is that, people are concerning themselves with things that ultimately aren't important for them at that point with where they're at. And like you say, they just need more skin in the game in terms of time served in getting results with people and delivering a good service. Coaching is much like a snowball effect. It starts off small, it rolls down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger. You know, the more social proof you accumulate, the more results you get, the more people inquire with you, the more of a reputation that you build. You look at any of the best coaches in the country or on social media or whatever who are doing incredibly well. They started years ago and they just got better and better and better and better. And they're just, one of my favorite sayings is that people often think that success is this one grand gesture. It's just one big thing, event that happens. It's like, bang, success. It's not. It's like the culmination of tiny, what seemingly insignificant tasks done really well over time that will lead to success. So just keep chipping away. Like, there's no quick fix. That you're not going to run this one Facebook ad that changes your business overnight. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that your third point you said there about client retention, especially in these times, is so true, because that's something, even with me sort of doing things now for, say, 5-6 years, I'll be honest, retention rates over lockdown have not been great. It's one in, one out. It's 1 in, 2 out. And then I start to naturally question, am I doing enough? What more do I need to do?
Yeah.
Like you said, do I need to run a Facebook ad, blah, blah, blah. To then realise that just keep fucking doing what you're doing. As you said, I think that what coaches maybe focus on too much is getting the next client, opposed to, as you said, serving your current ones. I'm sure I saw something on Instagram story today. I think you told one of your clients to double down on just providing an amazing service.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's like maybe the best advice that they needed to hear, because I've been there as well. Like, when you go from, say, like 20 to 40 online clients rapidly, you go, whoa, this is getting quick. And you start to, I had never really talked about sales or lead gen and all these buzzwords to keep me excited. For times, I think, and I don't know what your thoughts on this, you think that coaches just need to take a step back and be like, just coach.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you give it phases. You go through like a growth phase and a consolidation phase. So in your growth phase, you're focusing on pushing marketing a little bit more than you probably would. You're trying to generate leads, you're making sales, you're getting people into the coaching business. And then in your consolidation phase, that's where you double down on providing an amazing service, improving your systems, improving the kind of client journey and the overall service. And you set there, and it's like you imagine a graph or a trajectory of like improving. It's up, plateau, but each time as an average you're going in that direction. But if you're constantly hammering growth, you're constantly hammering more clients, then all of your focus and energy is on marketing, lead gen, sales, and all of your current clients are getting pissed off because you're not probably giving them the service that you should be. So you need to go through those phases.
I think those are some strong words that probably a lot of fitness professionals in Scotland needed to hear. Well, for us, it's an incredibly frustrating time. Naturally, and there will be some coaches out there that will want to grow their business, when in reality, it's very hard to grow an online business with gyms shut. If you're focused on just a single, maybe you're busy within your city or just your country. Scotland's only got 5 million people in it, but anyway, that's a different story.
We spoke about that off air briefly, didn't we? And like you said, it can be quite worrying as with retention, it could be 1 in, 1 out, and that's quite concerning. And of course it is. But going back to the whole situation that we find ourselves in, it's unprecedented times. And even if it is 1 in, 1 out, but you feel like you're giving more value than you ever have, and you're really knuckling down on doing the best that you possibly can, then understand that if you weren't doing those things, then the likelihood is it would probably be going steadily downwards. So although it may not be the best situation to be in, you're probably doing a very good job at staying afloat, which is that's a massive win in this time, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And mate, at times, like, I'll be honest, and this is not to do with new coaches, to do like with me, like pertaining to me and my business, like that's something I need to remind myself of, because I get frustrated with what am I not doing, and overanalyzing what I'm not doing. I'm kind of like, well, why have a look at what you're doing and understand that, as you just said, like when you just put it into perspective there of, well, at least you're not steadily declining. I was like, Oh shit! Yeah. Well, that's a really really good point, because from the outside, so many people go, "Oh yeah, but things must be great for you. You must be, this that." Next thing you go, "Well, yeah, things are right,
Mm.
but they're not as good as you make out to be. We're knuckling down on
Yeah.
adding value, and that comes from, I think, just like having brand standards and building a brand, and that kind of nicely leads us on to the next question, because I'll be honest with you, when someone mentioned to me, the word brand and personal training, I was like, that them two don't go together. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
And so many coaches out there will be like, wait, what's this word? So I just thought that maybe perhaps you could give a little bit of an insight to someone, about what branding is, because I think some people think, oh, online coaching, yeah, you just post on Instagram and then clients get you DMs and that's sick, yeah, and you get busier. When in reality, it's not about that. So can you talk us through what is branding, how do we build one, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
So branding is something much deeper than what people originally or initially perceive it as. For anyone who's heard of the word branding before, brand, who kind of knows what it is, they'll say color schemes, logos, identity, but it's much deeper than that. It's your ethos, it's what you stand for, it's your morals, it's associated with either quality or not. For a lot of companies, that's how deep brand is. And brand is so deeply intrinsically hardwired into us buying that without it, you really won't be as successful as you want to be. So the example that I used recently on a post that I think you saw, which kind of sparks this conversation, is like an example, and it's a theoretical example, but just imagine, if you will, you're traveling in a town or a city abroad that you've never been to. You don't speak the local language, but you need a place to stay, right? You're looking for a hotel, but you don't know where's good. You're trying to ask people, but you can't understand what they're saying. But all of a sudden, you stumble across a Nike hotel, right? Now, Nike has absolutely jack shit to do with, the hospitality industry. They probably know nothing about making a bed at all. But because it's Nike, and because the brand is so strong, because it's so recognizable, because it's so intrinsically associated with good quality, damn right you would want to stay at the Nike hotel. You'd be like, I'm staying there. That's amazing, right? And that shows you the power of brand when you get brand right. And it's not to say that as a personal trainer or a coach, you're going to build a brand as big as Nike. I mean, there are a select few people in the industry who can maybe put themselves in that playing field, the Joe Wickses and those kind of big guys. But even so, the principle still remains. If you build a solid brand and you build it with a good reputation and it's instantly recognizable, it instills trust in your clients. So when you decide to launch a new program, when you decide to start up a new package or whatever it might be, and you talk about that on your social media and it's branded and people recognize it, it's instantly going to be associated with quality and results and all the things that you want. So building brand is really important and it shouldn't be neglected. So yes, it's color schemes and it's logos and fonts and all that kind of stuff, but it's your ethos and it's what you do as a company as well.
Yeah, and that's something that when I got into business a little bit, someone taught me through, like, Vaughn, what's your mission statement? And I was like,
Yeah.
What the fuck's a mission statement?
Yeah.
I had no idea, because I was like, yeah, I'm just this dude, this bodybuilder, just kind of like training people, and I float about and I lift weights and that. And I think that there's so many people out there that sometimes I guess you're checking with a client, or we'll jump on a call and I'll give them a little bit of the advice that you just said, and before they're like, oh shit, when I just ran this 10-week plan and I've got like 20 people on, I'm like, see how easy it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think naturally, as whether it's bodybuilders or fitness professionals, coaches, I think that we look at that stuff and we just go, no way. But I like how you simplify it and break it down, and you make that simple reference to like Nike. The reference that I use, or I always say to people, where do you buy your clothes? And they might say Nike, and I go, cool. I bet you Nike emails you every single week telling you about the discounts. And they go, yeah. I went, do you open it? No. When you buy clothes, you're going from Nike. And I'm like, cool. I'm now doing a weekly newsletter.
100%.
When before, and this was me being totally honest, I went, fuck doing a newsletter. Fuck, that's a lot of shite.
Yeah.
But I guess then when you go into these systems and understand that it's a small, like, I love what you said about how it's a small business, because I was just like, I'm a personal trainer.
Mm.
At the time, now I'm not a full on coach, but that's where for many it all starts.
Yes.
So when it comes to, I suppose, branding, if there was, do you think that there should be a definitive statement if someone says, this is who we are and what we do, or
Yeah.
should it just be about, well, I'm this and the next thing? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that goes back to kind of links into your avatar as well and your target audience. As a coach, whether that's personal trainer, face to face, or online coach, you need to know who it is you help, how you help them, and what the outcome is. And that needs to be quite punchy. It needs to be quite catchy, but it needs to be clear and concise. Like going back to that thing, don't fall into the trap of being a generalist. I'll work with any time. It's not to say that, look, if you say that your target audience is 25 to 35-year-old males who want to step on a bodybuilding stage, for example, right? If you more often than not get amazing results with that demographic, then you will quickly become the kind of go-to guy for that sort of work. People will start inquiring of you more and more frequently. You're now a specialist. Guess what? You can now also charge specialist prices because you're in demand, right? It's not to say that you will not work with anyone outside of that demographic. I think that's a fear that people have, isn't it? It's like, just because you've said that that's the type of person that you work with doesn't mean if a female who wants to do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't mean you turn them away. It just means that more often than not, you're marketing and targeting that avatar.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because I just came off a consult call with a new client, and they said they maybe want to do a show or a shoot. And we spoke at length for the majority of the call about that. And then at the end of the call, they were like, well, Vaughn, could I still do coaching if I didn't want to do a shoot or show? I was like, hell yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to. But I love that you said that, because I hadn't even thought of adding that in. And I guess if they're, again, which kind of leads us nicely to the next one, is if there was, we've talked about three things that we think coaches, tips on coaches to do when they start online.
Yeah.
There was three things not to do, perhaps, that you see common mistakes. I know you've mentioned the not speaking to your target audience, not knowing your avatar, etc., etc. But that aside, there's sort of like an all too common mistakes. Three things that you see. What would they be?
The number one thing that I've noticed over the last few months of running Supercharged is massively undervaluing what it is that you do. And I think it comes to, maybe having worked with online coaches who maybe they've been undercharging for years or whatever. And so it's like this knock-on effect. Like the thing is I understand that it has to be specific to the individual and your experience levels, the kind of results that you've got over the years, how in demand you are. And that's why when I'm helping coaches start, we set up their packages and their price points specific for them. It's not a one size fits all thing. But more often than not, if somebody's online coaching, they are massively undercharging. And it goes back to that whole mindset shift of, don't see your service or your product as a spreadsheet, a check-in, a nutritional protocol. That's not what the client is investing in. They're investing in the outcome. They're investing in better sex life, more confidence, respect from their peers, lower risk of mortality, those things that people value massively. I've said it before, when you look at it like that, and when you look at your service like that, you then have the confidence to go forwards and charge accordingly. Now, I'm not saying you should be ripping people off, but you work out some people's daily rates for online coaching and it's coming in like £2 a day or something. It's like, really, you don't think that what you do for your clients is worth more than £2 per day. And I see it all the time. So that's the number one thing is not valuing what they do. So like, that's a really quick thing to do. And I posted about this recently, is write down your monthly fee for online coaching, divide it by 30, and that's your daily rate. And then just ponder on that, ask yourself, are you happy with that? Do you think that's right? And then if it's not, do something about it, because you're probably undercharging, probably undervaluing what you do. Yeah. I think the second thing is as well is that coaches don't really, they don't see themselves as needing certain systems, etc., because they're not at that level yet. So it's like, do I need that yet? And the analogy that I like to use is kind of a cheesy saying, you've got to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Okay. Because if the goal is for you to progress forwards, then you need to be acting accordingly. So again, I compare it to building the foundations of a house. Like the better the foundations are, the more you can grow and scale, but if you're kind of starting small scale, then you're going to find it really hard to spin all those plates when you do grow. So having things like a solid onboarding system that is efficient and kind of does the job is really, really important. But when you take a new online coach on, or they're just starting their online coaching business, you'll sometimes get the kickback or the friction of, do I need that? I haven't got any clients yet, or I've only got 2 clients. Do I need that? Well, you might not need it right now, but you're going to need it. So kind of better to do it now, sort of thing. So that's definitely something that I see. And then the third thing, things that coaches do wrong. I'm not sure. I might have to come back to that one.
Okay. I didn't want to interrupt you on the first point, but I'm sitting there nodding because it took me to have 2 conversations with one who's a good friend of mine, Joe Parish, and then another one with Mark Coles, to start charging more.
Yeah.
It was last September. I was charging like £90 a month for online coaching.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't think of it, and honestly, I did a podcast with Joe and I had a call with Mark, and after it, I just literally felt like they just pull my pants down, and I was just embarrassed.
yeah.
And like what you even said about breaking it down into what you sort of earn every single day.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But at the same time, I had a fear of increasing my prices because I didn't have a confidence in my brand.
Yeah.
Where that lack of confidence was stemming from, I didn't know. I was just like, oh well, I'm not that guy at the top of the industry, and he charges like 150. So fuck, I'm not as good as him, so I'm going to charge this. And it was probably, as you said, I was devaluing what I did because based on what someone else do, and that came down then to me. I had no idea what my values were.
And you know what? That's a really interesting point when you said you're comparing to other coaches. But whenever and I have this conversation with loads of the guys and girls that I work with, what you've got to remember is when someone inquires with you, when somebody reaches out and asks about your services, they've come to you and that stands for something. So they want to work with you. And it's remembering that people buy people. Yes, they want coaching and they want the result, but they also want to work with you, whether that's because of your personality that you convey on social media, maybe it's your morals, your ethics, whatever it is, but they've reached out and they've inquired with you. So you're already kind of ahead of the curve in that regard, but people just need a bit more self-belief, I think. And I know that's easier said than done, but the value thing is massive. And it's all too often I'll jump on a call and I'll be like, dude, why are you charging that amount of money? It's ridiculous.
Now, here's the thing, because I remember like when I got told this is what you should be charging, I'll be honest, I felt this like fear.
Yes.
This like, oh my God, I can't tell all my current clients that I'm charged that much. So is that something you see? And if so, how do you work around that?
Massively. It's like a limiting belief, you especially if you're somebody who's worked with other coaches, if you've had coaching yourself, there's no way that you can't make direct comparison to that coach that you've worked with. What's the level of service that they gave me? How much did they charge? And then it's reflected in your price for whatever reason. But it's so common for you to have the fear of putting your prices up. And here's something that I want to put your mind at ease when it comes to prices. If you're somebody listening to this now and you're worried about putting your prices up and the impact that that's going to have, I'm going to tell you now that the impact is going to be nothing but positive. Because here's what happens when you put your price up. When you put your price up, the client that you take on board has more skin in the game. They're more financially invested. So they instantly value what they're receiving more. Like if somebody pays you £50 versus £200, for example, who's going to take the programming more seriously? Probably the person who's paid £200. Yeah. And that's obviously a generalization, but usually that's kind of true. Yeah. The second thing is that when you when you undercharge that way, the people don't really value you or your service as much as you would potentially like. I use the example of, let's say you go into a shop and you're looking at two things you like. You're looking at two watches, but you can't see the price of either of them. Now you're looking at the both and you think, I like them both. They're really quite nice. You get revealed the prices. One of them's £100 and one of them's £1,000. You will instantly be more attracted to the one that's £1,000. It becomes more valuable because of a number. It's an arbitrary number, but it's true. And the same is true for your coaching services. You know, like if you're jumping on a call with someone or someone's inquiring with you and you're saying it's 70 quid a month or whatever, why is it 70 quid a month? Why is it so cheap? You know, it's instantly smearing your product with that price. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, and totally, mate. It was something that, you know, I was in years ago in this sort of mindset of, yeah, you know, every year I'll just add £5 to my.
It doesn't even cover inflation, but yeah.
and you're absolutely right. Not even thinking about that. Not even thinking about sort of taxes, expenses, and this, that, and the next thing. And that's maybe where some new coaches maybe go wrong. Do you think that they perhaps not? Are they not focusing too much on the numbers and the tax side of things and all that jazz? Or do you think that's something that they're, like you said, are they kind of like, oh, but I don't need that now?
Yeah, it's one of the, I've been there and done that, especially with taxes. On the point of taxes, you know, irresponsible, straight out the military where I was making a real tiny wage. All the money that I took was mine, to being a busy personal trainer, making lots of money, lots of cash, and not putting any money aside for taxes. It happens. You know, I was an irresponsible young adult. And then you get those tax bills through and it's like, oh, what the fuck do I do now, kind of thing. And then you play catch up for a very long time. You know, you're constantly chasing your tail, trying to get back in the black, as it were. So one of the pieces of advice that I give to all of my coaches is to consider getting an account, like a business account like Monzo. Monzo gives you the ability to set up tax pots. So you can access them if you absolutely need them, but it will you can set the percentage that you want it to put aside for every transaction that comes into the account. So whether that's 20%, 30%, 40%, puts it in your tax pot. It removes the stress of, you know, the tax bill coming in and you not being ready for it, which is a massively, you know, overlooked part of running a business is, you know, financial, like health, looking after the finances, you know. So something like that is such a small thing, but it has such a huge impact on your sanity more than anything.
Totally. I mean, what I've always done is I've tried to remove that and just got an accountant.
Yeah.
But understandably, when you're at the start of your coaching career, you might not be able to afford an accountant because their fees can be through the roof.
Yeah.
Now, I know time-wise, we're good for time, and what I wanted to say was, with sort of Instagram now becoming the sort of what seems to be the main platform for whether it's personal training, coaching, whatever it is, people, we know, right, on Instagram, that's what we use to grow our business and pick up clients. But what I wanted to ask you, and to perhaps give advice to other coaches out there, do you feel that attention, yes, of course, Instagram, but what other sort of absolute structures and systems do you think they should have in place in regards to building sort of, whether it's online or one-to-one personal training, coaching business? What else should they focus on apart from just Instagram?
Just solely from like a marketing perspective, or just, from a marketing perspective, something that a lot of trainers don't do that they should start doing is email marketing. So we've actually seen recently the volatility of social media platforms. They can come and go like that. Now it looks like Instagram will be around for a while, and, you know, touch wood, because a lot of people do rely heavily on Instagram to promote their businesses and to generate leads, right? But, you know, you've seen in America most recently that TikTok has literally just been banned. And I know that sounds stupid, but over the last year or so, there have been influencers on TikTok making a salary from TikTok. And it sounds mental on the surface, but it's true. And that has been taken from underneath them. So relying on one platform as your primary and only source of marketing is probably not a good idea. So using your personal Facebook page or your business Facebook page, having an email marketing campaign is a really good idea. So you can use simple software such as Aweber or MailChimp or anything like that, create an email list. Typically, when you're setting up an email list, you need to give people something for them to want to join it. They're not going to just willingly take your marketing emails for your good health, right? So create what we call a lead magnet. That could be absolutely anything. It could be like, here is a free recipe book if you sign up to my email list, or put your name and email address in this link and I will send you my recipe book. You capture their details and you can market to them over time. Highly recommend listening or reading the book, How to Write Words That Sell, or something like that. I'll double check and I'll let you know, and you can put it in the show notes if you want to. But it's a fantastic book that teaches you about copywriting, which is a really overlooked skill as from a trainer's perspective. You know, being able to write in a certain way that attracts the attention of prospects and gets them to inquire with you is a huge, invaluable asset to your business. And email marketing is a great way to drum up new leads, you know. So you're right. I would definitely say don't just solely rely on Instagram. Email marketing, Facebook, you probably need to be doing that as well.
I still remember, I think it was back in 2016, I was at a camp down south in Nottingham, and I got given advice then of, you should start up an email marketing list. That should be your main focus. And I instantly went, fuck that. I'm not doing that. That's bullshit. That doesn't do anything, right? And if I'm honest, if anyone's listening, like, I only just started doing weekly emails a few months ago. Like, if I'm honest, because the growth that I saw last year and to the start of the year anyway, couldn't keep up with it. All I could keep up with was just onboarding and setting up new clients. To then realize, okay, well, actually, you know, and then, you know, along came COVID, and all that natural growth just halted.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, well, I was at the time solely relying on Instagram. So then I think that what's happened made me see value in, like, right, let's set up a lead magnet. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's look at, you know, is that lead magnet actually fucking being seen by people? How many people are opening it? Like, talk about open rates and stuff like that. And I went, gone are the days where it was like, right, clients cancelled the session, let's go get coffee.
Exactly.
But just that's the way like it used to be. So for me, and I think that for many others, well, I don't know if perhaps the coaches you work with, this whole lockdown maybe perhaps has been a blessing to open our eyes to some of the stuff that we should have been doing a long time ago.
Definitely. It's a kick up the arse. It's a kick up the arse for most people, for most business owners. It's not just the fitness industry, but you speak to any small business owner, you know, little shops, cafes, whatever, they're all like, I have been relying on this one thing, and if this happens, then I've got nothing. So it is a kick up the arse. A lot of people are in the same boat, and it's not to say, and I don't want to be doom and gloom, but it's not to say that if this does happen again, if we do go into another lockdown and it's extended and all that kind of scary shit, it's not to say that online coaching is going to be the only answer and that's going to save you, but it will definitely dampen the blow to some extent. You know, if you can maintain a decent client base online, or even if you've got personal training clients, but you can keep them happy and keep their subscriptions going during the lockdown by providing some value through an online capacity, then that's obviously going to help massively as well. So if you're still sitting on it, if you're listening to this and you scraped through the first lockdown and didn't put anything in place online and you're thinking, I'm out the other end now, don't, because it's just a mad thought process.
You know what, you're right, because I think me as an online coach, you instantly think, the minute the gym's open, we're going to boom. Everything's just going to go. In reality, that's not the case, right? People will still maybe be hesitant to buy, or all of a sudden we're like, right, cool, the gyms are open. And then Boris is like, right, Leicester, lockdown. Right, cool, Manchester, lockdown. And you're like, oh, shit. Right, cool, this isn't over, and it won't be over for a hell of a long time. And I hope that in the years to come, when I chatting to my grandkids or whatever, I had to say, this happened once.
Yeah, 100%.
This happened once in our lifetime, and it didn't happen.
Never again, yeah.
Now, what I'd love to do is just to sort of summarise and wrap things up is, if you were to just give any piece of advice, so you've dropped so many golden nuggets out there for coaches that are looking to start their business. But if there was anything off any of those topics that you can give advice on, some real advice, just what would that be?
My advice would be just start, because that's usually the biggest thing for people, is being overwhelmed, not knowing where to start, and then ultimately not doing anything. So just put one foot in front of the other. And it sounds so simple on the surface, but 9 out of 10 of the conversations that I'm having with coaches who are considering coming on board Supercharged start with, I know what I should do, but I just don't know where to start. Just start something, reverse engineer it. What does the client need to receive? A training program. How am I going to deliver that? I'll do this. Start. You've got that. Next thing, it sounds so, I'm oversimplifying things. Of course I am. But the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting going is you, so just take action, one foot in front of the other, and you'll be absolutely fine.
I like that you said that, because if I look at some of the programs I delivered back at the start, can't help how shit they were.
That's the one. That's a saying, isn't it? It's like, if you're not embarrassed of the first thing that you started or the first thing that you delivered, then you started too late. You will be a little bit embarrassed in years to come, but just get going.
100%. Now, aside from all things coaching, one thing I like to ask all the guests that come on board, just that pertains to your own life, is just what is or has been the biggest lesson in life that you have learned, and from that sort of lesson, is there any advice that you would give for anyone out there listening?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me, not necessarily like a single moment or occasion, but more generally like a time in my life, was serving in Afghan for 8 months with like a specialist unit that got to go out and do operations, etc. That for me was pivotal in my adult life, because it gave me one of the most invaluable tools that you can hope to have, which is perspective and context. And I think, a lot of the decisions that we make in life that are potentially uncomfortable, that ultimately push us forwards, rely heavily on your perspective and having, something to compare by. So when I'm making a tough decision, whatever that might be, I've always got that as a reference point. And if that was pretty shit, which it was, then, it can't be that bad, sort of thing. So I guess the advice from that is to kind of embrace uncomfort. And it's something that I preach a lot to my clients, is go to a place where you're uncomfortable and stay there for as long as you can in a controlled way. And you'll come out the other end a little bit stronger for it. So face it head on. If it seems uncomfortable, it's probably a good experience. Go for it. Don't be stupid, obviously. But, if you want to get up on a Sunday morning and run 18 miles unprepared, then fucking do it.
I was going to say, how is your legs feeling from that anyway?
My legs are all right, man. It's my foot. I've done something to my foot. But other than that, yeah, it's all good.
Nightmare. But mate, I think what you just said there, 100% right. And there's not many people that could. I can't sit here and relate to what you went through and going to Afghan. I think it's unbelievable what you've done for your country. But it certainly gives you a different outlook on life, and one that I think is probably invaluable that many will have. Now, that being said, there's maybe some people out there that want to get to know you a bit more, that want to reach out. Could you let them know where they can get in touch with you on Instagram, website, stuff like that?
Yeah, so cheers for that. I appreciate that. My Instagram is Condition by Carson. We spell condition with a K. And funny story on that, just very quickly, condition with a K is basically fitness in Swedish. Who knew? So it's Condition by Carson with a K. That's my Instagram handle. My coaching website for, like physique coaching is conditioncoaching.com. And the mentoring for the personal trainers is superchargefitpro.com.
Fantastic, dude. And before we go, I think that I'll speak for me and all the listeners, especially all the aspiring coaches or the coaches that are in their sort of first 1-3 years, whatever. Massive thank you for coming on, dude. Hugely appreciated, and we all wish you success in the near future, in the long future. So yeah, thanks for that, mate. Much appreciated.
No, dude, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Now, for anyone out there listening, whether the gyms are open where you are or not by the time you listen to this, I think I speak for both me and Ollie when I say give it the beans.